Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. Before we go into the next conversation, I was just having a brainwave, and I was telling Ibrahim that I think somehow we will begin to think of how to have live guests. You need to hear the things we say behind the cameras that you would never be able to hear at the other end. But make it a point of duty to be one of our guests one of these days. You will enjoy the extra conversation behind the scene. It's very, very interesting. Moving on to our first discussions this morning, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, Nimet, has said that the states in the north central and southeastern zones of Nigeria would brace up for more flooding. The Director General of Nimet, Professor Mansur Bako Matazu, stated this on the sidelines of the ongoing Hydrometeorological Status and Outlook Systems, HydroSUS, in Abuja on Tuesday. The Director General, while speaking on the current flood impact across the country, said though flooding as a result of rainfall may have reached its peak, flooding as a result of opening up of dams and other water holding facilities will still affect states in the north central and southeast. There may not be an end in sight soon. We are joined now in the studio by the Chief Meteorologist and Executive Assistant to the Director General of Nimet, Mr. James Ijampe Adamu. I'm not sure how I did with the second name, but it's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Looking at Mr. Adamu, you clearly know that he has done his feasibility forecast and he's looking well dressed, knowing fully well that the rains would not come down on him on his way to the studio this morning. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Where do we start? It's every day we wake up, it is one state under the water. A couple of weeks ago, it was supplies not being able to reach Abuja and other contingent states because of the situation in Lokoja and the unpassable condition of the Jebba axis. And it appeared we were completely out of ideas on what to do. We were just praying and every day hoping that when we wake up, the water levels will recede so that supply chains can be restored. And then suddenly, the southern states, one day it is Rivers, the next day it is Bayelsa asking staffs not to come to work. We know that the predictions were there by Nimet, and we are now hearing that the situation could get worse. Can you bring us to speed with what else do you think we need to be prepared for right now in the light of this your recent revelations?
Thank you so much. The whole concept of forecasting is for early preparation and early action. And that is why during the public presentation of the seasonal climate prediction by the Honorable Minister, Senator Hadi Sirika, it was made clear in February that this year we're going to experience above normal rainfall. In the month of August, the DG, Professor Mansur Bako Matazu, gave an update that we are going to experience much more above normal rainfall. And from records, I'm just trying to take you through records. Yes. We've noticed that states like Jigawa recorded 109% above the normal rainfall they experienced in a year as at September ending. Same for Sokoto, surprisingly, 185% above their normal. Sokoto normally they record 600, at most 700. This year they have recorded 1,500 millimeters of rainfall. Wow. That is much. And considering the hydrological flow, everything from Sokoto, Borno, has to flow down to the Atlantic Ocean. So you have the dam release, you have the hydraulic flow of water coming down, and that is why what we're experiencing in the central and the southern, including the coastal state now, is the rainfall accumulation in those states, the hydraulic flow, and the opening of dams. Now, what do we do? Infrastructure. You find out that even developed countries like the US, when they have hurricane, you have destruction, but the time it takes for this water to recede, to drain to it's because they have this very good infrastructure. I'm sure we need to start looking towards that in terms of our design. For example, the Lokoja, the connection between the north and the south. Now we should be thinking of a mega structure there because the flood are here to stay. How do we take up this, elevate the road network in such a way that even the flood water comes, just like you have big bridges, even like the second Niger bridge. We should be thinking along that line. It might be very expensive because if you lose communication, we know the economic toll on individuals in and around the northern central state where fuel is no longer luxury. You have to queue to get fuel, and it's because of this disconnection. And you find out that foodstuff going to the south, find a lot of economic loss. We're not looking at, you see cows in trailers dying, and they are slaughtering them
right
on the road. Not to talk about perishable fruits and a lot of economic loss, which I felt sorry for those that have been impacted. Then looking at the economy, some major companies are already declaring force majeure, which is really as a result of climate extremes. So we need to look at our designs. Experts need to come down, look at our designs of our structures, our waterways, our channels, so that we have to learn how to adapt and see that the effect of this flood are being mitigated.
All right, so most of these things you're actually talking about seem to be like long-term things. We had that time, I think, between 2012 and now, because 2012 happened to be the last major flooding incident that we had, and lots of discussions were held. Unfortunately, nothing happened between that time and now. I keep coming back to this whenever we discuss this flood issue. We saw it coming. Nimet saw it coming, and it told everybody. What could we have done from the time that Nimet made this prediction that this was going to happen? What could we have done in that time, that's February, until when the rains came? Was there anything that we could have done to have minimized the effect of this flood?
I think the information getting down to the rural populace, people that are affected, loss of lives, houses, and the rest, information is power. Moving people away from the floodplain and the rest may have reduced the impact on individuals in terms of life lost and the rest. In terms of the environment, we saw what happened in Kano State after the flood. That's when they now said, okay, we start taking off structures on the waterways. A lot of both private and public infrastructures, you find some of them on these waterways. So if you have public structures there, so individuals, when you start taking out public structures out of waterway, then you can enforce on private structures and individual structures. So we need to clear our waterways so that these waters we always look for the way down. And we need to start looking at probably our rivers need to be drenched because they've been silted over some time. If you drench it, it's capacity to take more water. Though you may say it's long term, but we need to do some of those things because just like I said, the impact of extreme weather events, just like hurricane in the US, they have the best structures, but we find there are impacts. However, the time that it takes for this water, the recovery. So our recovery plan, we need to look at it. We need to look at it and redesign our recovery plan. We need to sit down together. And as at this September, we were working at the federal government level. I think we work as a team. Nimet, NISA, the Space, NASDA, and NEMA. We had looked at this. We have calculated the time the flood would get to Lokoja. We had calculated when it would get to Anambra and when it would get to Benue. That's the best we can do in terms of science. But we need the buy-in of the state government. Key is our local governments. We need the buy-in of the local government because the people are closer to the local government in terms of information, in terms of infrastructure.
When you look at what had happened, one way or the other, if you are not directly impacted, you are affected by the contagious effect, the cost of food prices. I mean, today in the Federal Capital Territory, you can't simply drive into a civilian station and buy your fuel because of what had happened in Lokoja, and the impact continued to bite heavily of residents here. I mean, buying 10 liters for as much as 4,000 naira, that barely takes you from here to anywhere. But what was surprising to me and a number of Nigerians was, despite these alerts, despite these calculations available to state governments, when it happened, it felt like a moment of epiphany for them. It was like they just arrived at a scene and suddenly discovered that it was unworkable. Now, you said something that was crucial to me, that you seem to have done the best you can at the federal level. It appears our politicians at the state are more concerned about 2023 than anything that could distract them. And this is not a political question, really. My concern really is, what more can we do to sort of create a dual information line? Recently in the US, I think I've had cause to mention this, they have the Amber Alert. So a car is stolen, you didn't even know anything is happening. You get a text message saying, XYZ car with this color and this had just been snatched, and there's even a baby on board.
Sure.
Along this place, if you are within proximity of certain anything, send an alert to this number, you know. I'm not sure where that comes from, but I spent about 4 days in the States and I had tons. That was me roaming my number, not even the US line. I got tons of those messages, putting me on the alert that I could also be in danger should I be around this set of persons. I'm hoping that we could see a collaboration between these agencies you've mentioned and the agencies in the telco space, where they could make this kind of infrastructure freely available, so that those kind of warning signs, especially the ones that says, what time will you get to Benue? What time will you get to Kogi? Which, I mean, maybe we could expand it into as much as, if you stay in Vandekia, please, this is the moment to leave. And once somebody gets that kind of alert 2-3 times in a day, it could trigger something to move away, because the concern for ordinary Nigerian is a struggle between life and livelihood. Move away to where? To what? We don't have emergency camps. Even those who are displaced by internal crisis are struggling to survive. So is there something we could do to further stretch what you could do to make information available directly to these people, other than just waiting for a responsive state government to complement your effort?
Well, we have to start somewhere. And just as you said, I've experienced such, I mean, the media has a big role to play. In the US, I was there some times back, and when you have such major extreme, no matter the network you're watching,
you're getting an alert.
And it's an alert. No matter the channel you're on TV,
it's an alert.
You a weather alert system. So also, I believe the radio, I didn't use the radio, and the telcos, as you say. So we need a buy-in. And what happened this year, after the Kotonkarfe Lokoja, I just realized that we needed more stakeholders
on board.
If we had invited the National Union of Road Transport Workers to show them that these are the likely impact, probably movement of goods and services to the north and the south.
It probably wouldn't have been cut off.
Probably something would have been done. That was my own thinking, because I had to think deep, what next? Because after, in 2012, I was part of the team that gave the early warning. Then Nimet wrote to the state governors. Practically, each informing them. So we've been trying to see how we can work with now the media, because in terms of climate communication or extreme weather communication, the media has a big role to play. I mean, you have to open up that, okay, this information gets to you, and I mean, this is public service. Let's start from there. I think that is one way. Two, we'll keep engaging with the state government, and I'm sure my DJ has been doing his best, engaging with state governments, and to see that this information, understand, Nimet doesn't stop at the national presentation. We go to the grassroots. We do what is called downscaling. This year we've covered almost 26 states, going to talk to people from the local government, crisscrossing I mean, giving them this information, that's the best we can do as government. And engaging state governments, we need to engage more. We need to talk. The media has a big role in climate communication. You are the conveyor of this information. You by what you do, you can save lives. And we are trying to see if we can work with the telcos, probably through the NCC, to develop such Amber Alert, which is key. With this event, I'm sure, and this idea, I'll still take it up to it. It has been on, it's been within our discourse, but probably this will bring it more, so that we'll get to meet with NCC that will now bring up all the telcos, so that we'll discuss how do we get an alert system. If something is going to happen in area in location A, every telecommunication service around that area should send information. It could be nationwide. You could be in Abuja, you know something, you could now reach out to your
network.
Your
relatives.
You'll be surprised what we'll do with communities using WhatsApp group. In fact, that is what, as Nimet, that's what we do. We do community WhatsApp group where we just drop this information with them. The development partners, we use, they've been of help. CBOs and NGOs, we've been using them to get this information. But as you said, we can still do much more.
All right. You know, it's funny sometimes where we have agencies that actually do a lot, and unfortunately, we don't know of these agencies until when things happen, when they come up. That's when because I can remember during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people didn't know we had a Center for Disease Control.
Sure.
No, a lot of people didn't know. Everybody, a lot of people thought it was actually a new agency, but there was something that has been there before. So I think maybe more awareness should be created for situations like this. Nimet has done a great job. I mean, by being able to forecast and give us this early warning, I think it's something that's quite commendable. But a lot of people actually believe that there's still more to be done, and more can still be done, most especially when it comes to Nimet. And we've talked about a lot of solutions that we could bring to the fore now concerning this. Is there, just like you made mention, some of these things have been discussed, but we know climate change is here to stay. It is a real thing, and it's happening. It's a global thing. Lots of countries are making serious commitments towards mitigating it, towards finding solutions where they can. Is there a plan being developed now by Nimet of how we can be able to, a long-term plan now, not just, okay, this has happened, let's tell NEMA that there's going to be flood in 2 weeks, let them arrange their mattresses and go and give people, no. Is there a long-term plan, let's say, okay, between now and 2027, we can do this and do that, and maybe things, is there anything in development right now concerning that?
Well, the way Nimet is designed, we are to make focus. And the climate, we have the Ministry of Environment, where you have the climate change department that does policy. Okay. So there are a lot of people doing some. Ours is to make sure, like, we can give you short-range forecast, long-range forecast. Even the next 10 years, we can give you forecast. That is our mandate. Okay. In terms of environmental policies and the rest, there are other agencies that are saddled with it. So we are being careful not to overstep. Yes. Okay. We know our real responsibility is early warning, make forecasts, archive the meteorological data, and use them for public good. Okay. Yes.
Talking about overstepping and using the analogy in a family. So sometimes you see that your child, whether male or female, it is headed for, whatever path is taken is headed for disaster. Sure. But he has come of age. You want to think that he knows what he's doing, so you just allow him go, and maybe somehow he would self-righting. But it seemed to be eminent on hitting the rocks. You probably would have to go out of your way at some point to say, see, I see this danger. You don't understand it, and I need to save you from yourself. Beyond the mandate of Nimet, because this has become a national emergency. We are beginning to wake up, sort of, to the realization that Nimet is not just one small agency in the Ministry of Aviation, that it's now central to our entire ecosystem, whatever that entails. And we cannot now begin to just look at you as somebody who made focus over rainfalls, when the weather will be bad, so that the aviation agencies know what to do. I mean, we are now saying that you practically have to factor Nimet predictions into what you do as a person or as a corporate institutions. Can we begin to find other ingenious ways? Because you said something that was central. It has come to stay. You know, who knows? We may not take another 10 years before we see the next set of the disasters. If people do not understand, it's you that seem to have a broader perspective that is seeing the end from the beginning. Is there something we can do to sort of coerce, if you like, these agencies are responsible to begin to respond in the manner that could minimize whatever that next disaster will be, however soon that will begin to happen?
So I think the way out is every sector of the economy needs to understand the weather in its design of activities. And for example, Ministry of Works and Housing, in terms of road construction and housing, we need to have a conversation, Nimet Ministry, for them to understand the return period. It will, in your design of bridges and road, that is why after some time you have road and they are after 1-2 seasons they're washed off. But by the time you understand the return period, you understand the material to use in that regard. So such conversation. So we'll look at data. Look, this your design for the 60s and 70s. The rainfall pattern is this way. Now it has increased by this %. So the material to use, you are expert. So you need to use materials that will last. If the return period is 10 years or 50 years of an extreme event, you should factor it in the design of the bridge. We are talking about a lot of, even in Yobe State, we had bridges that give way this year.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Jigawa as well.
Jigawa as well. Bauchi road network. And Bauchi Jigawa, that area, year in, year out, the road network keep collapsing. So that means you need to look at the design of the road and things, because there's a lot of this heavy and high intensity rainfall leads to some kind of erosion. So you need to factor that into your design. So Nimet, we are still open. We'll give every sector the information needed in their design and in policies, including state governments. But we will still work with our colleagues in the Ministry of Environment so that we go as a team. You know, we have evidence and the policy, so that we will now present this thing to each of the sectors the way, including telecommunications. You find out that even in your design, you find out marks and the rest giving way because of the design in terms of wind strength.
That's right.
And at the higher level, you find, above 10 meters, it's different from the wind strength here. You need to factor this, because when the marks give way, it may destroy properties, in some cases loss of life. Yeah, so some of these things we looked at them, and even in design of even billboards, the direction you set them up. So we discuss, and with this disaster, it gives a kind of visibility to Nimet, and we have people come in and we give them product and services that will help them in their activities.
Interesting. We've had a more revealing session, you know, when it comes to what role Nimet would play. And I'm wondering if my guest would be the right person to respond to some of the questions that would come next with regards to how big we think Nimet has become, and whether it is time for Nimet to now even become a standalone, so that we don't have to go through back channels to hit Nimet, and all of that. We will find a way to bring out this conversation. The bottom line is to mainstream Nimet in just about everything we do when it comes to environmental impact assessment. That's our concern. However we do that, we will look at what options are available to us after this short breather. Please don't go away.
Welcome back. It's still Daybreak on Trust TV, and we've been talking about the environment generally, climate also in general, and of course we're talking about the recent flood disaster, or the current flood disaster that we're facing right now. We saw it coming, couldn't avert it. It's here now. What do we do? So, and we've been in deep conversation, and we've been talking about what steps we can actually take to make things better for the environment and for ourselves by extension. So just before we came back from the break, we were talking about how state governments can actually make a big mark when it comes to mitigating things like this. You talked about having the buy-in of state governments and most especially local governments because they are closer to the people, tell the people what they need to do. So is there any move right now to bring all these stakeholders together on a permanent basis, not just okay when something comes up that's when we call you and brief you or anything like that. Having something like a platform whereby you guys will be in constant communication, sharing information here and there, and even bouncing ideas off each other, because I think the buy-in of the state governments is very, very important when it comes to situations like this, and there are things that they can be able to do within their own power to mitigate this. Is there any plan for that?
Yeah, there are plans, and we've been implementing some of them. For example, each year, January at most February, we do the seasonal climate prediction, where we invite letters are written inviting state governors, commissioners, agric, environment, related agencies to up for the public presentation. I mean, that is one way every year. So we've been doing that for the past 15 years. And we'll keep, because that's you get them. Then my DG has, I think even this year, after the public presentation, makes a special presentation at the Governors Forum.
Okay.
I mean, he did that this year. So we try as much as possible using every avenue to get to the state government, giving them this information and then trying to make them, some of them invite us to the states to
make presentation
and the rest. And we have seen some development in some states in terms of infrastructure. We find out, yes, they've had above normal rainfall, but the impact wasn't much. Some of the states, probably Kaduna State, you could see some construction, drainages and the rest. So they had above normal rainfall within the metropolis, but the impact was not as previous years. So such, it's a gradual thing. And we just an example. Other states were doing theirs, and you see some of these things.
I have a question, but before I get the question, I thought I should put out these thoughts. Perhaps Nimet would also begin to consider a more advanced approach at putting out this information. And when I say that is, these days we see information, dissemination using a lot of graphics and video simulations.
Sure.
Especially in the aviation sector, they have a way of simulating what led to the last crash, what lessons they have learned, and how to avert the next crash, or even altering designs to permanently take care of whatever errors. Can we get to a point where you have seen clearly that this is the level of water it will take, this is the level the water is likely to rise to, this is what date it will arrive at XYZ environment? Can we begin to have area pictures and video simulations telling people that, look, by Friday, this is where your house is. This water level would have swallowed this house, and this is the likely impact. Maybe that way, the media would also quickly buy into it, because we are also on the side that is struggling to understand the magnitude of these things. It's only clear to us, like with the other state government, when the doomsday it's here. Maybe we can migrate to those kind of simulations that clearly put the disaster in the face of people and say, see, this is your fate in a couple of days or hours, except you move, or except you do ABC and XYZ. Maybe that will get it dying. That's on the one side. I thought I should put out that information. Or we have graphics that begin to then paint floodplains and the rest in red, clear reds in our maps, and begin to show clearly in a broader form that all of these places are in danger. And except this kind of, maybe that will begin to force the kind of actions we'd like to see. Because at the end of the day, we're all interested in surviving. We have to be alive before we think of whether we move people out of poverty or not. Sure. I mean, this singular act alone has sunk more people in poverty than anything that had happened in the last 10 years. Having said this, my question really is, looking at what's happening with your revelations on Tuesday about the opening of the dams and the rest that will further complicate situations for the coastal, the southern state. Using the opportunity of this program, what is there you want to tell the residents? I mean, from some of the state government, they just basically say, don't come to work. And I'm wondering whether the houses are located in a place that are saved from the path. What else can they do? And like you said, you know when these things will happen. You have probably done a metrics of when it will recede. How long until they begin to get some form of respite?
So right now, the ITD is around 12 degrees, latitude 12.
By ITD, what?
Well, we're talking about the rainfall zone.
Okay.
So that means we're beginning to see some hazy weather condition in the extreme northern part of the country.
Okay.
So by the end of this month, the rainfall will reduce. It has reduced in the central state, but it will reduce further towards the end of the season. So the southern and coastal state will be active in November. And then probably towards by third week of November, in terms of rainfall, we'll have some relief. In terms of the dam, most of these dams are around the northern part and central part. So when the rain are now getting reduced, so there's no need to further. You rather want to save water for other activities, either for power or for agriculture. So we'll see probably the end of November for the coastal state. I'm sorry, they just have to, because it's already super saturated, and the rain will still be there till the end of November. For them, though, the magnitude might not be much. Okay. Since the drain, everything is going towards the Atlantic. You see Bielsa, you see big mansions inside the which, I mean, it's a sorry state, but that is what it is right now. And in terms of Nimet, we'll keep giving information and updates. Probably just like 2012, in 2013 there was big interest in terms of weather, and when there was nothing, 2014 there was nothing big, and so I mean
interest wind.
Until suddenly this year it is up again, and we'll keep giving updates and working with governments to make sure that this information gets out on time. And talking about animation, and you are in the media, you know some of these things are a bit costs. Right. Yes, and I mean, we do this as Nimet, but I'm sure the funding, we are under the Ministry of Aviation. And I mean, funding for disaster, even when they give disaster, I don't want to go into that. I mean, Nimet should be able to get money to do some of those things in terms of early warning. I mean, it's key, because animation brings, I mean, pictorially, when you give, we do the risks, with NEMA, they've done the risks, vulnerability risk mapping. Okay. Yes, but using animation, saying, okay, in the next few days, the houses around here will be submerged, in the next 1 week or the next 1 month. You know, such things are very, 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 very good. And we are looking at ways to bring this disaster information through pictures, so that people will be able to really understand, appreciate these things.
Right. Well, it seems that there's a lot to do. A lot has been done, and there seems still to be a lot to do still. So my next question has to do with, okay, we've talked about what we didn't do. We've talked about what we're doing now, and in some part what we need to do. Can we expect something like this again? probably next year or the year after that, because this thing happened in 2012, just like you said, and there was lots of rancor. People talked a lot, just like we're talking now. Lots of things were said. We're not building right. We need to do dams. We need to do this. And then 2014 came and it was normal. It was not really anything. 15, 16, and then everybody just kept quiet. And now it's 2022 and we're looking at this right now. Should we be worried going forward? Will it take another 10 years before we see something like this, or will it happen more frequently?
What I would say, it may not take the next 10 years. This year, for a very long time, we've experienced the triple dip in the La Nina. It's too technical. One of the drivers that bring about extreme rainfall in Nigeria. It's a triple dip happening, so, and the driving effect is still on. So we are looking at 8 probably. We may still see some of these things sooner
rather than later,
if not next year. Just looking at the patterns, but I'm sure we already started working on the next year's forecast. So by December we'll have a clear picture if it's going to repeat itself, if it's going to be much more. We'll have a clear picture, and I'm sure by January it will be unveiled to the public. So we should prepare for, with climate change, these events will be more frequent. Just like we're having more frequent hurricanes now. Remember what happens here hits the ocean and becomes hurricane. All this rain that passes here, they hit the Atlantic, pick up energy and goes through the Gulf. And so we're having more frequent extreme events. And we just have to, as I said, it's here, we just have to live with it.
Quickly before we let you go, we have talked lightly about the impact on households and environment and all. I'm wondering, with this washing away of the topmost layer, which is the most conducive for agricultural activities, what will be the impact on food production? Are you also talking to research agencies so that they probably, they know how to play with your data, they know what the impact of your data is, so that we begin to also look at drought-resistant crops as a way of also, fine-tuning that sector to begin to look at things that can cope with this kind of challenges.
You see, Nimet, okay, I'm an agrometeorologist, so I do the agricultural component of it. And we work closely with the Research Institute, with IR and NRLS, IIT. We've been working closely in terms of the data, and it's from the data they now know the stress tolerant varieties have been developed based on the information we share, and we go down with them even to do community agricultural aspect. And as you said, in the food security system, this flood is going to affect availability and access to food, mostly due to increase in price, and for the those in the rural communities, because their stock, what they had before the harvest, and now the harvest will be low, so you have some reduction in there. So we may experience some food insecurity in the country, and so by the end of November, the analysis on the food and nutrition security will be made public. We are part of the team, so I made part working. So we'll do the analysis. I'm sure the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the lead agencies will share that information. But I see some stress level in terms of food insecurity.
All right. Well, it's been an interesting conversation talking about the environment and the current flood. And Mr. James Ijampi Adamu, thank you very much for coming. It's quite interesting to have Nimet's perspective about the whole flood issue. We've talked to a lot of people concerning this, and it's very good to have your perspective as well. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for giving us this platform.
All right.
We look forward to using your platform.
Exactly. All right. And this is how we're going to wrap it up on Daybreak this morning. Let's do it all again tomorrow. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.
It's a pleasure to have allowed us into your living room for free. As I say always, if you have missed out on anything, please hit our social media networks to catch up on what has been a very interesting package for this morning. Let's do this again tomorrow. I am Sunday Michael Ogu. Thank you.